Sheikh Yasir-Kadi's interview with Muhammad Hijab will go down in history as one of the great turning points in the history of Islam. Muslim scholars and apologists have been spreading the myth of the perfect preservation of the Quran for decades, but Yasir-Kadi finally admitted that there are holes in the narrative. Meltdown officially started in June when Sheikh Yasir-Kadi admitted that there were holes in the narrative about how we got the Quran. But we can't understand why Dr. Kadi was compelled to admit this and why there was such a massive backlash without understanding the background. Three things led to the interview and the meltdown. One, a few years ago, Jay Smith and Hatun Tash started bringing dozens of different Arabic Qurans to Speaker's Corner, proving that Muslims use different Qurans in different parts of the world. Ever since then, people have been showing Muslims differences in different versions of the Quran, differences which completely destroy the myth of perfect preservation. Two, Fareed of Fareed Responds, aka Fareed Leaks, leaked some of Yasir-Kadi's private emails in which Dr. Kadi privately expressed some doubts about the preservation of the Quran. So it became public knowledge that even some Muslim scholars reject the standard narrative. Three, for the past few years, Muslim leaders have been trying to figure out what to do about the massive numbers of Muslims, especially young Muslims, who are leaving Islam. So Muhammad Hijab, tactical genius that he is, decided to fix these problems by having Yasir-Kadi on his live stream so that Yasir-Kadi could explain that his emails were misinterpreted and that the people who are claiming that there are different versions of the Quran are wrong and that Muslims should stop leaving Islam because the Quran has been perfectly and miraculously preserved. Unfortunately for Hijab, the interview did not go according to plan.
And it's very clear to you and to every single very advanced student and specialist that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say. And I don't think it is wise to bring it up in public.
Muslims immediately started complaining that Dr. Kadi was destroying their faith in the Quran. So Hijab decided to abrogate that part of the interview. Eventually, he abrogated the entire interview, just like Allah had to abrogate entire chapters of the Quran when Muslims forgot them. Dr. Kadi, on his channel, had to abrogate the comments section because so many Muslims were complaining that he was increasing their doubts about the Quran. Soon, Dr. Kadi, like Hijab, had to abrogate the interview, but the damage had been done. Christian apologists started using clips of the interview to show that Muslim scholars and apologists were lying to their listeners about the Quran. Ex-Muslims started using clips of the interview. Even Muslims who don't like Yasir-Kadi started using the interview to attack him.
And this has to be probably the most damaging podcast, I think, to date in regards to the du'at and the destruction it caused. He goes on to Muhammad Hijab's platform and starts giving the preservation of the Quran question.
Instead of ignoring the interview or responding to it by providing some kind of evidence for the preservation of the Quran, Muslim apologists around the world decided to lose their minds. When Muslims told Muhammad Hijab that they were having doubts about the preservation of the Quran, Hijab replied by thumping his chest and screaming at them. It also ended up exposing Islamic apologetics as a whole. Discussing the topic of ahruf and qira'at, Yasir-Kadi describes the process that Muslims go through when they try to reconcile their beliefs about the Quran with the reality of the Quran. So there are three stages. But the first stage that Yasir-Kadi mentions is the beginning student of knowledge. There's a stage before that, the stage of ignorance. Most Muslims don't know anything about ahruf and qira'at, so they don't even know that there's something to be confused about. They've been told that there's only one Quran, perfectly preserved from the time of Muhammad, without a single difference anywhere in any manuscript of the Quran. That's the stage of total ignorance. But the beginning student of knowledge starts looking into the history of the Quran, and he finds out that the Quran was somehow revealed in 7 different ways, and that there are different versions of the Quran even today, and that Uthman burned the earliest Quran manuscripts in order to cover up the differences. How does the beginning student of knowledge react?
When you're the beginning student of knowledge, you're like, what is all of this going on here?
What is this mess? Now, the reaction should be, wait a minute, I've been told all my life that the Quran has been perfectly preserved right down to the letter, and now I find out that it was all a lie. I guess I can't trust the scholars and apologists who lied to me for all these years. But for some reason, that just isn't the reaction. Instead of recognizing that he's been lied to, the beginning student of knowledge goes to his scholars and apologists and asks them to explain the different ahruf and qira'at and missing chapters and missing passages and textual variants. Notice, he goes to the same scholars and apologists who lied to him all his life. And what happens?
When you go a little bit more, you learn to simply memorize what your teachers say and regurgitate it out. And you don't fully comprehend.
So, before he began studying the evidence, the student of knowledge believed his scholars and apologists when they told him that there's only one Quran, not a single difference in any manuscript anywhere. When he finds out that they lied about that, he goes back to them anyway, and they tell him that the ahruf are just different dialects and that differences in the manuscripts today are just accents and other such nonsense. He memorizes these responses and mindlessly regurgitates them. But what happens if he digs a bit deeper, Sheikh Yasir-Kadi?
When you do a deep dive is when things get very, very awkward and difficult.
Things get very awkward and difficult. Why? Because he realizes that the responses he memorized from his scholars and apologists don't really work. Shocker. The people who lied to him about the perfect preservation of the Quran also lied to him about the ahruf and qira'at and textual variants and so on. Now, recall the 4 stages. First, there's the ignorance stage, when you have no clue what the evidence is. You've only heard myths from your scholars and apologists. Second, there's the confusion stage, when you've been exposed to some of the evidence and you realize that you've been lied to. Third, there's the regurgitation stage, when you memorize and regurgitate what your lying scholars and apologists tell you. Fourth, there's the awkwardness stage, when you realize that you've been memorizing and regurgitating total nonsense. What's interesting is that these 4 stages describe all of Islamic apologetics: ignorance, confusion, regurgitation, awkwardness. Let's consider a few examples. Muslims hear from Zakir Naik that the Quran is filled with miraculous scientific insights that couldn't possibly have come from Muhammad because they're only being confirmed today. Muslims believe what they hear because they've never bothered to investigate. This is the ignorance stage. But then these Muslims, freshly deceived, come to us and tell us about the scientific miracles in the Quran. And we point out that, according to the Quran, the sun sets in a muddy pool and that stars are missiles that Allah uses to shoot demons. In other words, we give them some knowledge. And what happens, Sheikh?
You're like, what is all of this going on here?
So the Muslims are confused. It's the confusion stage. Why does the Quran say all of these ridiculous things? So they go to their scholars and apologists, the same scholars and apologists who lied to them by claiming that the Quran is filled with miraculous scientific insights, and they ask these scholars and apologists to explain all of the incredibly stupid, scientifically false claims in the Quran. And these Muslim scholars and apologists give them answers. Well, when the Quran says that the sun sets in a muddy pool, it simply means that someone saw the sun's reflection in a pool as he was watching the sun set. What do the Muslims do when they hear this?
You learn to simply memorize what your teachers say and regurgitate it out.
The problem is they regurgitate these answers at us. And we make them take a closer look at what the Quran says. And we take them through the hadiths that show that Muhammad himself believed that the sun sets in a muddy pool and that stars are missiles that Allah uses to shoot demons. We block the miracle of reinterpretation. We take our Muslim friends for a deep dive. And what happens when we take them for a deep dive, Sheikh?
When you do a deep dive is when things get very, very awkward and difficult.
Ignorance, confusion, regurgitation, awkwardness. This is why Sheikh Yasir-Kadi says that the Muslim population must never be exposed to the real discussion.
And I don't think it is wise to bring it up in public. Why didn't I say it? Because it should not be said in public. I don't want to get into that issue.
Okay, fine.
Why it should never be brought up in public? This is not something you discuss amongst the masses, ya akhi. It's not wise.
If people never know the basic facts about Muhammad and the Quran, the lies continue unchecked.
It says, for a certain number of days, but whoever among you is sick or on a journey, he shall fast a like number of days, and those who are not able to do it may affect a redemption by feeding a poor man. During your fast, during Ramadan, let's say you're sick or you're on a journey, so you miss a fast. So how do you make it up? Well, it says one of the ways you can make it up is by redeeming yourself by feeding a poor man. One reading in the majority reading, the Arabic word is miskin, which means one poor person. However, you go to Warsh and you go to other readings, it says masakin, which means poor people. So depending on which Quran you're reading, if I miss a day of fasting as a Muslim during Ramadan and I need to make it up, do I need to feed one poor person or do I need to feed multiple poor people? It depends on which Quran I'm reading. So this actually creates a legal difference in terms of how you practice the religion. So in chapter 10, verse 16, it says, say, if Allah had willed, I would not have recited it to you, nor would he have made it known to you. For I had remained among you a lifetime before it, then will you not reason? He's saying, if Allah willed, he wouldn't have made it known to you. If he willed, he would not have made it known to you. Now, let's go to some other versions. When we go to the reading of Ibn Kathir, according to Qunbal, it says, he would have made it known to you. And we can go to Al-Jalalain, we can go to a commentary to confirm. It says, say, if God willed, I would not have recited it to you, nor would he have made it known to you, nor would he have made you aware. And then it says the law of wallah, the long vowel there, la ajrakum, or negation, and is a supplement to what it preceded. A variant reading has the lam, la ajrakum, he would have made it known to you. One says he would not have made it known to you, and the other one says he would have made it known to you. So the easiest way to create a contradiction is to take a statement and then add a negation to that statement. And that's exactly what's going on here. You have a statement and you have a negation of that statement. He would have made it known to you. He would not have made it known to you. Here we have chapter 11, verse 81. So we actually have scholars that are going to comment on this verse. So we're going to be really careful with the comments that we make from our end, and we're just going to let the Muslim scholars speak about this verse. So let's just go into the verse. This is chapter 11, verse 81. And this is another one where the difference is so small. It's so subtle, but it completely changes the meaning. So it says, the angel said, O Lot, indeed we are messengers of your Lord. Therefore, they will never reach you. So set out with your family during a portion of the night, and let not any among you look back except your wife. Indeed, she will be struck by that which strikes them. Indeed, their appointment is for the morning. Is not the morning near? So we want to focus in on a specific part in the verse here. Set out with your family during a portion of the night, and let not any among you look back except your wife. Without getting too technical into the Arabic grammar, when you have the fatha on imra'ataka here, this changes where it goes back to in the sentence. So let me just show it by illustration here. So in this reading, this is what the Arabic grammar is doing here. It's saying set out with your family except your wife. Okay? That's what the reading is doing here. That's what the Arab is doing. This is what the grammar is telling us is happening. All the commentators agree that this is what's going on here. Set out with your family except your wife. So in other words, Lot is commanded not to bring his wife. Set out with your family except your wife. Really clear. Okay. Now, in another reading, it says Imra'a tuka with the dhamma. Now, this is really important. I'll put this on full screen. Thank you. Here we go. So now, because it has the dhamma, it changes the grammatical structure of the sentence, the syntax, sorry. It changes the syntax of the sentence, and it puts it back to another part of the sentence. So it says, set out with your family during a portion of the night. And it says, okay, that's one part. His wife's not excluded there. And then the second command is, let not any among you look back except your wife. In other words, The wife is coming with him on this reading. She's coming with him, and no one is going to look back except for her. Okay? So on one reading, she's to come with them. In another reading, she's not to come with them. Okay? These Qurans are contradictory. We have Sheikh Ash-Shankiti in the reading of the majority of readers, other than Ibn Kathir and Abu Amr, have no issue, because the majority read, and let not any of you turn except your wife. Okay? Let not any of you turn except your wife. On the reading of the accusative, there is no such issue in the verse at all. So the meaning is, so travel by night with your family in portions of the night except your wife. So this reading here, travel by night with your family, set out with your family by night except your wife. Then he emphasizes here, Sheikh Shankiti emphasizes here, so do not travel with her. Leave her with the doomed ones. And then he goes on and quotes the verse, because she's a disbeliever among them. As for the reading of Abu Amr and Ibn Kathir, in the nominative case, there is a contradiction. There is a contradiction.
Yep, إشكال متعارض. The word إشكال comes from the word مشكلة, which means problem, issue.
متعارض contradiction. Contradictory. Inharmonious. They're not consistent with each other. Why is there a contradiction? He says, in the verse which opposes his saying, accept your wife, because his saying, accept your wife with fatha, indicates he did not travel with her. And the reading, accept your wife with the dhamma, indicates he traveled with her. So here we have a Muslim scholar admitting that these two readings present a contradiction. One of them reads, travel with your wife. The other one says, do not travel with your wife. So the question for the Muslims is, what was the command that Lot was given? What was the command that he was given? Was he commanded to travel with her or to not travel with her? The answer is, it depends on which Quran you're reading. But if these are both from God, how do you escape this contradiction?